This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I was trying to get it out of here. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get flat. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. Get it, get flat.
And we are still not tired on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Chirico, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner in fun. That is Doc from Doc and Jack, John Charles Macaroon. John, how are you doing?
Vito, welcome to the weekend. Holy cow, man. I'm not used and I'm not ready for the snow. I mean, I'm used to it, but it's just a situation in which too soon. I needed a little bit more fall, a little bit more nice weather, but here we are, Vito. Welcome to the winter. It's dark at 5 o'clock, and here we go. Holiday season is upon us.
Welcome to it all, right? And you know what? It creeps up on us. It really has creeped up on me this year, and it's a shame. Is how I view it, living in Michigan and having to deal with that, with the early nightfalls now, like you said, at 5 o'clock and whatnot. And now, this is quite the transition. There are more people entering the podcast platform and realm, and specifically the one that we want to cover today is Mike Valenti of 97.1 The Ticket. Came out with his first episode this week, and what did you think about it? Because you and I both did take a listen to it. It was about an hour and a half, and a lot of content, and featuring Dan Wetzel, too, from Yahoo Sports, a local product, a guy who I believe lives in Ann Arbor currently.
Yeah, Vito, when we started this project, Adam and I, back in September of 2013, we realized that there weren't many people doing podcasts every single week that was super high quality and that was entertaining and that was in the brand in which we wanted to. So back in 2013, Adam and I started a weekly podcast, the Doc and Jock podcast, and we knew that people liked it because Adam and I were going back and forth. We were yelling and screaming at each other. But once we started getting guests on, we understood the value of conversation and we understood the value of growing this through social media. So it's been a great ride for the last 5 years. And as you've seen, as you jumped aboard back in 2015, you realized, oh my goodness, there's a platform here to potentially cover sports, to grow an audience, to engage with the great fans of Detroit. And like you've seen now, if you look, there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Detroit sports podcasts. And it's great. It's great to see. But when you hear a little bit of how it went down for Mike Valenti, really interesting stuff in that the background was that he tried to get a podcast done 2 years ago, and he had to go through the channels to try and get it approved, get it sponsored. Vito, 2 years to do a podcast? Literally, in this day and age, you can go to the store, get a USB mic, connect it to your computer, and record a podcast in literally, if you got $80, you can record a podcast in 30 minutes. It's not that hard nowadays. Back in 2013, it was a little bit more challenging in terms of space, where to put it, how to grow it, and things like that. So I appreciate Mike Valenti doing it, and I enjoyed listening to it, and I was excited in that a guy like that, people will say, well, how do you feel about other podcast networks, the Drew and Mike podcast coming in? And I say, great. I poke fun at them and saying, look, I wasn't fired from anywhere to start it. I wanted to build this up to be viable. And people would say, oh, you can't make any money. You can't get credentialed. And so all we've done is just tear down barriers and explain to people what this is. And so I don't have any problem with anybody willing to do it. But I think in the end, when radio people get involved, it's great. But unfortunately, he's also under a corporate banner. He can't just do and say whatever the hell he wants, and he's even acknowledged that. So, yes, he'll definitely maybe throw in a bullshit here and there, but he ain't going to be doing what we're doing because we don't have a corporate structure like that. He's got to report to Entercom. He's got to report to his sponsors, and it's a little bit different in his realm. But in the vein in which he did it, it is a compliment to his show. But for me personally, before we get to the review, I like his show. I like his Detroit sports takes. So for me, when we saw and I started to dial up and push the button to download the episode, I thought, well, first things first, you probably could have done better had you released it via the Apple Podcast first, not release it to your website. And second of all, I think that when you do a podcast, I think your first episode, 90 minutes is okay, but you got to remember, it's different for guys like Jim Rome who do a 3-hour radio show and who aren't doing a bunch of things on the weekend. Mike Valenti's on the air 4 hours every single day. He does a 2-hour football show on Sunday. So for another 90-minute content podcast, it's just maybe a little bit too much for a guy like that. And that's kind of my first thought. The other thing is, you know what? It doesn't have to be 90 minutes. Maybe you can break it up and do 2 at 45 minutes and allow people to get it that way. But I just think that, it was done in a radio fashion, which is no problem. And I actually, when I dialed it up, I liked the fact that it was an interview-based, and he definitely is a guy that can get big guests and do great interviews. Dan Wetzel, professional. I've heard him on Jim Rome's podcast, and great topics. But for me, the way I will review it is to review it fairly. It's a great podcast. If you're a fan of Mike Valenti, you will enjoy the podcast. You will enjoy hearing his takes on other things. But for me, I'm a Detroit sports guy. So to open your podcast talking about Zion Williamson with Dan Wetzel just wasn't something that I was like, oh. So I fast-forwarded to that part. Then they got a little bit into the NBA and the NFL, so I peeked in a little bit there. And then the end of the podcast just did nothing for me because I'm not a fan of Roadhouse. I've seen it. I know the jokes and things like that, but it wasn't.
Wait, you know the jokes though? You don't even know the movie, right?
Yeah,
I was like, "What the hell is this?" Roadhouse. Yeah. It came out before I was even born. It came out in 1989. I'm looking it up right now to kind of get some more background info about it, as I know we're going to talk about it a bit. How he mentioned Roadhouse and went and broke down the top 10 one-liners from Roadhouse. What the hell is Roadhouse? Now I barely even know who Patrick Swayze is. I know he passed away. He was in Dirty Dancing. I know him from that. I don't know anything else about Patrick Swayze, to be honest with you.
Okay, Vito, it's kind of a cult classic movie in that it was maybe a movie that was not the best, but people come to like it, and it's in that genre. And Patrick Swayze was a guy that was a decent actor and things like that, and so it was a movie that a lot of people got into. So for me, exactly, it wasn't a topic I wanted to get into. Now, had he maybe gotten a Lions insider, maybe an in-depth interview with maybe Jim Caldwell or someone like that, maybe to kind of break things down, that would have been a great first guest. Dan Wetzel, he's been around. He's done it all. I mean, he's on every podcast platform. He does a lot of shows, a lot of appearances. So while that's a big name first guest, I think it would have behooved Mike Valenti to get a Detroit sports person, somebody that maybe we hadn't heard of. You know what? In the end, the way you look at it, you could have even gotten TJ Lang to sit down with you for an hour and go in depth in regards to the Lions organization and things like that. But it's tough because a guy like TJ Lang going through his situation might not be able to talk as freely. But in the end, like I said, to review it fairly, it's a good show. It's professionally run. It's now on Apple Podcasts. But the way you should have did it was wait until you're on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and get it there. Get it everywhere you can go because you released a podcast. Everybody listened to it yesterday on the website. But now I don't think that podcast is going to get in the top 200 that first episode. I do think he's going to make noise, and I think he'll do a great job with it, and it can only help anyone that does a podcast. But in the end, the reason why I always favor Detroit Sports Podcast is we're completely independent, devoid of any corporate input. 2 years to get your shit together and get your podcast up and running? Come on, man. It doesn't take that long. And the thing is that, unfortunately, when corporate people get involved, they're going to have some kind of say in terms of what's going on with the project. And look, we're completely independent. We don't care about what anybody says. We can say whatever we want, whenever we want, and I think people do. And I did get a chance to kind of peruse the comments. Some people tagged us and said, hey, I'm looking forward to your podcast along with Doc and Vito and Doc and Adam and things like that. And look, all I can say is this. We've taken the podcast from my mom's basement to Adam having a show on the radio. So what else can we do? And I've got a credential. Me.
I was about to say, what's happening to you? You haven't got on the show. Look at you. You're telling, well, at least Adam. Hey, Adam's come from nowhere, from your mother's basement, right? So look at what you guys have become. You're right. You've risen. Well, the ceiling's even higher, right? The ceiling's even higher for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network,
exactly.
At least. And probably networks all across Detroit, Metro Detroit, the state, you could say, too.
And Vito, I can tell you this. Look, and the great part was, through Mike Valenti opening his podcast, I realized you're a Valenti. And this is
I am. How about that?
Vito
News to
Valenti.
you. We never even talked about it. You are a horrible interviewer. You said it, via Twitter or jokingly, but really, we never had even hashed that out. And I've never told you that my mom's maiden name is Valenti. My mom's dad, who I'm named after, passed away now, is Vito Valenti.
That's great.
How about that? Vito Valenti is who I'm related to, named after, and that's my mom's dad. How about that, Doc?
And it was really funny to kind of reveal, and it's just great. And look, all kidding aside, Mike Valenti's a great broadcaster. We're all big fans.
He's the best of the best locally.
But now he's a competitor, and he's released it. Thank goodness not on Thursday. He's released it on your day on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
Tiger's stock will even stake more in the
versus
ratings.
Mike, baby.
I know.
And we're going to get it. And he's already got a sponsor, the D, and that's fine.
The D Las Vegas, which is really cool.
But
Because he goes to for that first and second round, I think, of the tournament games that Thursday and Friday when the tournament opens up.
4 sponsors, baby, and you're doing well, and you are currently the highest paid sports podcaster in the Midwest, and I'm happy to hear that. And like I said, we'll discuss further, maybe you changing your professional name to Vito Valenti.
You would love that to have. You've told me that now more than once.
I think it could help you in your career. Why not? I think he probably would tell you to do it. And look, in the
Who
end,
would tell me to do it? My grandpa?
Your grandpa?
Who's passed away.
Mike Valenti
I
would
feel
tell
like
you.
I would be doing him dirty and a disservice by taking his name when I've never even met the guy. That was his name.
Okay.
That was his name.
All kidding aside, what did you think of the Mike Valenti Always Aggravated podcast, which you can find anywhere you can find podcasts up until this point?
I love Mike Valenti. I actually did like Dan Wetzel, and I get into the Zion Williamson discussion. He's taken over, catapulting the national conversation about college hoops, future NBA talent. He's the best of the best, a future LeBron, or a little bit, different version of LeBron, a variation of LBJ. And he's a 6'7", 285-pound guy that can move up the floor, can jump high and bring it down. So I did like that discussion. Now, back to the Roadhouse discussion. Now, podcasts and the format, I think, is typically geared towards millennials. So only the older millennials who barely make the list of millennials really got into that discussion about Roadhouse. Like, people from my age and under 25, they don't even get into it. They don't even know what Roadhouse is. They were like me when they started listening to it. What the hell is Roadhouse? So we're trying to figure it out. My sect of the millennials, what the hell is this movie that they're discussing? And I know for some of them, now I do know who Patrick Swayze was, who passed away and was in Dirty Dancing. I know who that is. I know there's some people of my sect, and I like to term it as, of the millennial population, that don't even know who the hell Patrick Swayze is, and that he was a big-time film star at one point. So nobody really, I think of my 25-year-old and under generation, really knows the significance of Patrick Swayze and what he meant to the film industry at one point. So I think for that part of the podcast, it really made us tune it out. I think a lot of the people of my age and under my age. So, and I think really podcasts are supposed to be geared for the most part towards millennials, right? The younger generation. And I think Valenti and company lost a lot of people when they started talking about Roadhouse. But I did like it. I give him props for the Dan Wetzel conversation. Because I think Wetzel, I've never even listened to him like that. He was funny too, man. Has a sense of humor. And I like seeing they had a rapport, Valenti and him. And I enjoyed the hoops discussion because I'm a hoops guy myself. Not an aficionado when it comes to college hoops, but I do like the Zion Williamson discussion. Once again, it's taken over the nation. Everybody's talking about it right now. And I get what Valenti's trying to do with this podcast. It seems like to me, it screams to me that what he's trying to do with this podcast, Doc, is he's trying to get away from the topics that he covers through his radio show. It's a different kind of audience he's gearing his topics and, the show towards more than what he does with his radio show, which is all local. This is more of a national conversation in which he can touch upon topics he can't cover through his radio show.
And I'm glad he did say on his radio show that he might go into a deep dive into the plight of Michigan State. So I'll be interested in those topics. And I like when podcasts do kind of tell you where certain topics are in the show, and that's good as well. So I would say subscribe, but definitely behind Detroit Sports Podcast. Download us first. Definitely subscribe to us, and then go and listen to Mike Valenti if you're a fan. You won't be disappointed, but there will be topics you can fast forward. And that's the best part about podcast is if you don't like a topic, just fast forward it, and you can listen at your own leisure, at your own pace. And a guy like Mike Valenti podcasting only helps the brand. And look, remember this: he came into our realm, and we didn't go into his realm. Adam has, but we're looking at it like this: more and more people, every single radio station is now demanding their host podcast. And so all I can say is this: I'm not going to pump my chest or anything like that, but
you want to.
Look, I'm not going to, demand respect or credit, but there weren't that many. There may have been another network that was doing it, but not as consistently, not as a network. And so what we did here on the network, I know I got credit for, and people definitely are aware of what we're doing because all our crazy supporters will tag and get in the mix, and I'll do it as well. So look, in the podcast world, we've done our job. And I like the fact that where this is going. Every host that comes on will tell you that, look, podcast is the wave of the future. It's super fun to do. And if you do it right, I think Valenti can go and tour and do all that kind of stuff. And I think his podcast, with the Minions and his great producers, will do a great job. And all it can do is help us. And all we got to do is focus on our house and continue to do great work. But like I said, give it a listen. But after you listen to Vito Valenti, no doubt about it, the real Valenti.
Look at that. Oh, man, I love that. I love that right there, Doc. And you know what? He's in our house right now. And like you said, you can fast forward through, hey, whenever I'm talking, you fast forward through the podcast. I know you guys are doing that already, so hey, keep doing it.
All right, Vito, how does this podcast set up? What's on the agenda?
Well, how about this? A Veteran Day reminder that was provided by Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw on SNL. last Saturday night. Was very telling, was very fitting, and he expressed a message in which he talked about how we should mention, when talking about veterans and recognizing them, really the phrase never forget. And also, he talked about how fences can be mended, and how people can come together. There can be cohesion between both sides of the political aisle, which we've discussed kind of in depth before on previous editions of Two Bad Hombres, about how the Republican and Democratic Party right now don't really see eye to eye. But Democrats and Republicans should come together and, should stop just shouting at each other nonsense, and where they can't agree and see eye to eye at all, and where it's become ugly and divisive. And Dan Crenshaw expressed this message of people from both sides of the political aisle coming together and also being able to forgive each other for each other's maybe mistakes that have been made by the other person in the past.
Pete Davidson from Saturday Night Live told a joke that maybe wasn't received very well.
It was insensitive, yes, about Dan Crenshaw's eye patch, and it's an eye, I believe, that he lost in war. He's a veteran himself, and Pete Davidson, in bad taste, provided this joke, and it didn't go off too well with Crenshaw and the Republican Party, and it was in bad taste for everybody. If you have morals and values, I don't think it looked very good for Pete Davidson making that joke, Doc.
Now, I got a clip here. We'll play maybe a minute to 90 seconds of it, and it's right when he appears. And it's good, too, because in a joking manner, the message that was sent was, we are a society that forgives.
Yes.
And even if you tell a bad joke or a joke that's not received well, we can always apologize, and we can have civil discourse. And this is a great example of what people should be doing. I mean, we don't have to see this on TV to get that message. You can maybe say something that somebody doesn't like, maybe in a joking manner, and as long as it wasn't mean-spirited, as long as you come out, and if it does kind of, in this new mob society, if it does take wind and people get upset, you can always come back and apologize. So here's Lieutenant Commander Crenshaw on Saturday Night Live.
You think?
Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw, everyone, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for making a Republican look good.
You gotta stop saying that, man. You've been saying it all day. Please, look, I just wanted to say, for people that don't know, the reason you're wearing an eye patch right now is that you lost your eye to an IED in Afghanistan during your 3rd combat tour. And I'm sorry.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate you saying that.
So we good?
We're good. Apology accepted.
Just keep breathing.
I love this moment right here, too.
You gonna answer that?
No, and I was just going to let it ring, because that's rude to answer. Let's just let it go to voicemail.
No, it's cool. Ariana Grande's well, cool, man. Yeah.
Do you know her?
All right, so that's funny. All right. So last week, I made a joke about a picture of you, and I feel like it would only be fair if you got me back and made fun of a picture of me. Does that sound okay?
I don't really need to do that.
No, come on. I deserve it.
All right, I'll do
Please? All right.
And now, first impressions with Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw.
Thanks, Colin. This is Pete Davidson. He looks like if the meth from Breaking Bad was a person.
So he comes on, cracks jokes, and it's a good thing, and I like that. It's an opportunity to make light of situations. Not everything has to be taken so seriously. It was a great moment, and that's what comedy's about. The fact that they played Ariana Grande's music is perfect, and Pete Davidson's a good sport. Remember, people are too butthurt about everything, and even in the situation in which Pete Davidson makes the joke, I wasn't offended by it because it's comedy. The idea of comedy is to talk shit, is to bring up things that people maybe don't want to talk about in a funny way. Now, could some people say it's not funny? Sure, you're allowed to judge comedy however you want, but Pete Davidson had a right to say it. They had a right to go out and invite Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw on the show, and this is how we do things. Imagine if everything that we've said on this podcast was thrown in our face from people that got offended by everything we said.
Well, we'd be done doing this podcast. You know that we'd be off the air big time.
So, you know what? If somebody has something to say, our platform is available to reach out to us anytime, and some people like us, don't like us, call us out for the things that we say, but we've never really dissed too many people or blocked too many people from our platform, and I think that's what makes America great is, hey, one party says something, the other party can come right back and spew the shit, and I loved it. I loved the fact that Lieutenant Commander was on that show, and it was funny.
And then SNL was the bigger man, bigger entity, and apologized. SNL never apologizes like that. So that really showcased a lot of dignity, integrity. I would say integrity from SNL to apologize to Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw, who was deserving of the apology. I think Pete Davidson's joke was in poor taste. It was insensitive. I didn't like it, even though it was attacking a Republican, and maybe I'm more liberal, I guess I am, and then you, and then some other, conservative people out there. And it's so divisive now, but people can come together and have civil discourse like that, and then joke around with each other. Why can't we do like we do here on this podcast? We poke fun at each other. We can go at it here and there, but then we come back to the table, and we're still friends. We can still shake hands and hug each other, and, hug it out. As my man Steve Carell would say, as Michael Scott in The Office, Steve Carell, by the way, a little promo for him. He's hosting SNL this Saturday to promote a new movie that he is in, as he's now a very serious movie star. So it's very cool to see what he's done in his career.
So in general, do you find comedian Pete Davidson funny? Does he have a good role on Saturday Night Live? And do you think with what he brings to the table, he's still a guy worthy of being on Saturday Night Live?
You know what? It's hard for me to say, and I thought about this because I don't really have the distinct memory in my head of him being really, really funny and like outlandishly funny with an impression or two. I don't really know him for any of his impressions. I remember him more for like doing these Comedy Central roasts. He's been on that, roasting maybe Trump in the past. I know Donald Trump had a Comedy Central roast done for him. So I remember and know Pete Davidson more from that and him being funny through that kind of comedy. Now, the SNL stuff where you have to make impressions and be known for impressions eventually to really make a living on there, make a name for yourself and become highly reputable as an SNL comedian and star. I can't think of any impressions that he's made that have really stood out to me. So it's hard for me to totally say, oh, this guy's been completely funny or not. Because I've seen him be funny a little bit. But I would say overall-wise, I don't think he's the most funny guy on there. I don't think he's one of their strongest cast members on SNL currently, at least. How about you, Doc?
You know what? I don't watch Saturday Night Live that much. You know what? Because I'm older and because of the way my life has worked out with the kids and the podcasting and the practice and other things I am involved in, I'm usually in bed by like 11. On
really?
Saturday.
You just give up?
I'm out. And it's a situation in which I don't get a chance too many times to watch it. I do watch a couple highlight clips on YouTube now and then, but I just don't get a chance to watch it as much as I should. So I can't fairly review it. I think that I was looking to you to decide. But I just, in general, if he's on the show, I do think that he has opportunity maybe in that slapstick kind of way, the guy that kind of smokes weed and kind of gets high and tells jokes like that.
I think that's the humorous from him being the person that he is. I think it's more a play of that off of his character and what he is away from SNL than anything else that he brings to the table when he's on SNL and performing.
Oh.
So,
all right, Vito, time for a quick timeout. Let's give love to the sponsors. You'll tell us about the great sponsors of the network. I definitely always want to thank our sponsors and the sponsors of this week's Two Bad Hombres, Top Cat Sales, and the Legacy Football Organization. With their support, make podcasting possible, and they're great sponsors of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Go ahead, Vito, tell us a little bit about the great sponsors of DSP.
Well, how about this? So the National Director of Football Operations for Legacy Football, the Legacy Football Organization, was on these airwaves last week as a guest in studio on Two Bad Hombres, episode 96. So tune in, download it on iTunes, Podomatic, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it. And Legacy Football as a whole, guys, remember, was founded in 2009. It is a premier off-season development program in the state of Michigan, in the Midwest, and the entire U.S. of A. The Legacy Football program provides unique platforms for student athletes both on and off the football field through community service, social awareness, education, and football. And the staff at Legacy Football consists of some legendary figures locally and throughout the nation that have played football at the collegiate and/or NFL level, such as Lions legendary wide receiver Herman Moore. To find out more info about Legacy Football and all of the events they are putting on for the Metro Detroit area and really throughout the nation coming up before the end of this year and into next year, please contact National Director of Football Ops, Justin Sassante, or go to the organization's website, www.legacyfootballorg.com. And also, Top Cat Team Sales is a fine sponsor of the DSP Network, has been for a long, long time now on these airwaves, and through John Wangler's leadership as the founder and CEO of Top Cat Sales, he has developed tons of great relationships with high schools throughout the area and also with small businesses, corporations, club teams, and you name it. And he provides through Top Cat the finest apparel brands, including Adidas. Now, if you want to get outfitted, just like the DSP network, by Top Cat Sales today, and Monday through Friday, then you can call up Top Cat Sales at area code 248-246-1054. Once again, the phone number for Top Cat Team Sales is 248-246-1054. And remember to follow Top Cat Sales on Twitter for all of my tweets at Team Top Cat. And back here on Two Bad Hombres, and we we dissed Pete Davidson before the break, and now we're going to keep talking about millennials, at least to a certain extent, and talk about specifically younger viewers, and how many of them have bailed on traditional TV now, and are cutting the cord, a topic that we've talked about kind of in depth in the past on Two Bad Hombres. And you had this article that you sent to me from USA Today, and the new stats are alarming, Doc, aren't they?
Really interesting in that millennials are not watching TV as much. They're not subscribed to cable as much. And it really took a deep dive into the look at millennials and what they're doing. A lot of people are streaming. A lot of people have Netflix. But a lot of people cut the cord. And in terms of their TV viewership habits, are not as invested in television shows. And it makes sense, too, because when you look at past ratings, Vito, MASH would draw like 35 million viewers every single week. Now, if your show gets a 1.0, a million people watching it, it's kind of like a little bit disappointing. And you look at it, the sheer reason is there's so many channels that maybe the market is saturated right now. And you're starting to see some channels kind of go away in terms of demands and things like that. And I like the fact that there's competition in terms of the cable and the satellite programs. You can be like, look, DirecTV's knocking at my door trying to give me $100 and they're trying to lure my business, and then Dish Network will maybe give you some programming for free, or they'll do some things. So competition's good, but I can get a sense that, you know what, young people, millennials, don't want to sit at home and watch TV. Now, Netflix and chilling is kind of fun, every now and then, but I do get a sense that your generation kind of wants to live a little bit more, wants to get out, wants to party, wants to go to clubs, wants to do other things than just sit around and watch TV. And at this point in time, really, if you ask me, is there a television program right now on television that you just absolutely have to sit and watch? I'd say no. Nothing. Some people like Roseanne and the spinoff and, the Connors, as it's called now. Other people like sports and things like that. But if you ask me, is there a show right now where you got to sit and absolutely watch it? And, is there a show like The Sopranos, Entourage, anything like that? No, because most people, it's like shows on HBO, kind of like Game of Thrones and things like that. But I'm not into it. So I can see why millennials just aren't into it. There's actually more to do nowadays, especially via the phone, dating, connecting socially, chatting. There's just a lot of fun things to do, podcasting.
Yeah, I think this is fun. Maybe nobody else does. Maybe that's why I can't find a girl that likes me. But anyways, yeah.
But there are opportunities to do a lot more things than watch TV. And I think, when I message you, you usually reply back. You're not telling me I'm sitting watching TV. You're usually doing something. You're trying to hustle.
Something else, trying to at least, or watching Netflix. Netflixing and chilling by myself. I'm lonesome. Not with a woman that I'm trying to hook up with, per se, as millennials now say.
Maybe you're just sitting around watching porn. Like
it's
a lot of
good
people.
Porn. Best of the best. Let me tell you, high quality. I only watch the best actors and actresses in porn. Not really. But Netflix is kind of what I do now, too. I don't watch regular, is it linear television? I don't watch linear television. People are cutting the cord. And I haven't officially done that because my dad and mom live at my house. I mean, I live under their roof. So if they don't do it, well, then Vito Churko is going to do it. So it hasn't happened yet. Now, I think my parents actually could envision a day in which they do it, because my parents, I think, would be all right without the linear television, too, because as much as we like our live sporting events, you can now get these sporting events through other entities and streaming services, such as ESPN3, Watch ESPN, which I think is ESPN3 now, and I mean, there's so many outlets, right, for watching sports live and without your TV. So you can get rid of the TV, forget paying for cable, pay for Comcast, Xfinity, whatever they want to call it now. They're at Comcast or AT&T or Dish, and just go full-fledged ahead into streaming and into that life, and to the Netflix and chilling, and for me, into binge-watching episodes of The Office and shows like that I've come to love over the years. And I just actually started catching up on The Office again and watching that series from start to finish again. So there's people like me among millennials who love The Office and love these shows from years past that will binge watch these shows and do more of that than watch regular TV programming on ABC, Fox, NBC. So, and I think the trend is moving in that direction big time for millennials, at least millennials that are in my age range. I would say 30 and under people. Yeah, we're not watching a TV show on a consistent basis. Or guess what? People are DVRing it, right, and then watching it after the fact. So there is that where they can then zoom through the commercials, right, fast forward through the commercials, and people love that now. That's a huge trend, too, and I don't think it's going by the wayside anytime soon, Doc.
Understood. How much Netflix do you watch in a given week?
I've watched a lot lately because of The Office, catching up on that, watching it from the start. So for me, it's been a lot lately. Now, consistently, I might have the TV on in the background, and then I will watch CNN at night, my favorite station, go-to station for politics. Anyways, then I watch ESPN. I'll watch a sporting event, maybe keep track of it on Twitter. And for me, a lot of it has gone to digital media, to checking out Twitter and finding out scores and the latest news on Twitter, Doc, honestly, instead of watching TV. And maybe I'll watch David Muir on Channel 7 do the world news. I'll watch his program at 6:30 on ABC. I'll watch a little bit of the local news, but a lot of the local news and world news that I find out about, guess what? I track it on Twitter, man, and I keep up to date on Twitter. I barely even use my TV because of that. And when I'm watching Netflix, lately it's been because of The Office.
So, and I think that's the thing, is that it's millennials. I think TV watching is more for people in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah,
Married
40 and
self-
up, almost
yes.
40 and up, or 50 and up, so maybe even a little bit older than you. How about that? Somebody that older than you, and yeah, it doesn't include you this time, what I'm talking about, as much as I would like to include you in that.
Yeah, I think that fad ended with Jersey Shore. I think once people got, my age, they caught on with Jersey Shore. They looked at it, they invested in it. But then after that, television's just kind of been bland.
Did you get disgusted? Did you actually watch the Jersey Shore? Are you
I loved
admitting
it.
to that?
Yeah, I
you
watched
did?
it. I loved
You watched
it.
it from day one, all the
100%.
episodes?
It was great.
Really?
100%.
Look at you. Now,
right.
with your kids around or not around, and your wife around or not around.
Now-
was it a bonding activity between you and your wife? Or
Yeah, we had fun.
Yeah?
Now we've settled into watching The Housewives. We watch a lot of the Real Housewives. So
you
that's-
watch The Housewives.
I do.
You do. Has she taken away your man card? Or should I take away your man card? They're watching The Housewives. The Real Housewives of Atlanta, or where are they now with these Housewives? They're like all over the nation with these shows. So many
Atlanta,
spin-offs
Beverly
of it
Hills,
now.
Jersey.
It's incredible, man.
I watch a lot of them, so that's
Oh,
what
man,
happens.
I feel bad for you, man. I might have to cry a little bit at night before I go to bed because of that now.
But now, Vito, do you know what I definitely still watch, but maybe I might have to cut the cord on? The Detroit
Thinking
Lions.
the Lions. That makes sense to me.
Now, earlier this week on Check the Report, we had a great episode. You definitely want to go and find that. We had Christy Carpo on, and she divorced the Lions. And I had an attempt, me and you, to try and bring her back to be a Lions fan. Find out if we were successful on the latest edition of Check the Report podcast. But it's really tough, Vito. The Lions are sitting at 3-6. The Carolina Panthers come in with Cam Newton in that offense, and a lot of people are checked out. And something really weird happened, too, earlier this week. Vito, on Thursday, it was snowing, okay? Where is the Lions game this Sunday? At Ford Field. The Lions are practicing outside this week.
Any
And-
logic, Matt Patricia?
And
Do you have a head?
And guess what? The game after the Panthers game is another home game.
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
And so you're looking at it and you're going,
Illogical, maybe? A tad, at least?
is it to build toughness to start prepping for Buffalo in the several weeks?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
weird.
let's toughen up for Buffalo. Get ready for Buffalo. Our minds are on Buffalo right now. Really? Your mind's on Buffalo? You got some issues, man, even more than we thought you had.
Vito, the Lions are a shit show. They have been, always will be. And
Always will be, you think. You don't have any hope for the future. Like Christy, she has no hope for the future with the Lions franchise.
It's not only the way in which they've lost, it's the sheer performances that have been just disappointing. The last 3 games, double-digit losses. Stafford has regressed. Matt Patricia, when he's asked questions by the media, sounds like really an overmatched idiot.
and defeated, yeah.
It's really bad right now. The Lions are in need of a victory because if they lose to the Panthers and the Bears, and they're going to go to potentially 3-8 with 5 games left, you got national media calling out Stafford. People are wondering if we could trade him and just take the $40 million cap hit. It's all bad right now for the Lions. What's your take on it? How much are you investing in it?
I don't watch every single Sunday. I'm way past that point in my life. Already at 25 years young, as I like to term it. Now, for you, it seems like you're tuning, less into the Lions every single Sunday, and you have your kids. You have an excuse, a legit excuse. I don't have any kids, not that I know of at least. So I don't have that excuse to not watch the Lions. But I view the Lions, and I'm like, man, I can't deal with this team, man. I can't deal with these guys, the illogical decisions, boneheaded decisions left and right from the coaching staff. And maybe, Bob Quinn has a chance to survive still. And next year, I think, is a vital year for Patricia and Quinn. And I think both could be out of a job after next season. If they don't turn around the ship real quick going into next season and win like 10 games. They got to win, I think, 10. Not just 9. They won 9 last year. Declined this season. They're not going to even win close to 9 this season. But next year, you got to win more than 9. I don't think 9's acceptable next season if Patricia and Quinn want to keep their jobs.
Absolutely. Are you still a fan of the Lions? Are you still invested? Now, you're not watching as much. Now, for me, I DVR every game. I do go over the stats, but watching it live, I actually rather take some clients, rather podcast than watch the Lions because they're that disappointing. It's not fun to watch. The offense is boring, stale. Stafford is not worth $27 million. The team is at least in 2018, has given up.
It's stagnant, yeah.
And
where's the effort, right?
Exactly. And so for me, watching it live just doesn't bring back any rewards for me. But I'm definitely a fan of the Lions. Still, want to scream and yell all about them. But in terms of my faith, it's really tough. It wavers back and forth in regards to, am I confident that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, that marriage, can they bring success at the highest levels to the great city and the fans of Detroit? It wavers. And right now, the part that sucks is you heard earlier in the week Jim Bob Cooter, when he was asked about Matthew Stafford, he's like, that's Detroit Lions information. And it's like John Ubakin had a great response. He's like, does Jim Bob Cooter know that the games are all televised?
Yeah, televised on national TV. They're not like locked in a folder. Everybody can see the film and see what Stafford's doing and not doing. More of what he's not doing. Exactly.
And so when you look at it, Matt Patricia and the staff are like, we think the offensive line's doing great. It's doing better.
You watching the same games, man? Exactly. It's almost dumbfounding, right? Hearing their answers to the media. It's just so stupid. Their answers, man, it makes them look even worse. I mean, we already have this shoddy image of the Lions, right, as a franchise, and of the headmen, of the guys in the front office, Bob Quinn leading the front office, the guy leading the team on the sideline, and Matt Patricia. People already have negative images and perceptions of these guys. Then their answers to the media, and Quinn hasn't talked to the media in a while, but Patricia's answers, Jim Bob Cooter's answers. Jim Bob Cooter's, his head should be on a platter. It's time for him to move on. And that's probably going to be the case. I think he's a scapegoat easily. And let's get it done sooner than later. Why not just fire the guy now? The Lions aren't going anywhere with Jim Bob Cooter, and that was maybe the biggest mistake Quinn made with the Lions so far, is keeping him to be Stafford's offensive coordinator, and Stafford's become stagnant, and he's starting to regress, Doc, as you have said on other episodes of the DSP network.
Crazy, crazy. Oh, my goodness. Real quick, I want to get your sense on this topic real fast, too, because a lot of people are talking about it. Do you think that KD, because I sent you a message earlier in the week, and one thing that you violate is you don't have to give me an answer, but you can't ignore my text. I sent you a text, and I had to look it up myself. I said, wait a minute, isn't KD's mom dating somebody prominent in this area? And I started looking, so I Googled Detroit Foundations, and I found the name of the character that potentially is...
The man?
The man, the myth, the legend. And so do you think KD... maybe. What percentage, Big Vito's over under 50%, does Kevin Durant break up with the Warriors and maybe come to the Pistons?
No way in hell.
No way in hell?
No. He's not coming to Motown. I think he ends up leaving the Warriors. It sounds like the more and more his dispute with Draymond Green that just happened. They suspended Draymond for a game. I don't think he really can stand Draymond, but is he coming to Motown? No way. Come on, you really think there's a shot? You gotta be kidding me, Doc.
Can you send a text to our inside source and maybe just ask what percentage chance do you think?
Get him to coerce Durant to bring him to Motown?
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be
great. Good luck
great.
to that, because it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen?
No.
He's going to want to go to a winner.
We all wish it would. Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, look at the Pistons roster, and they look all right. They had a big win just the other night.
But I want to say this.
Against the Raptors in Toronto.
I'm Team Draymond. I think it's absolutely right to call out KD, because what happens is KD is now, at the end of the year, he has the right to opt out.
Yep.
So he can become a free agent, and, Draymond Green's kind of a team leader, and he wants to know, hey, I don't want this season to be all about every time I go to the court, a microphone stuck in my face, and everybody talks about, hey, what's going on with KD? What's going on? Do you know if he's coming or going? And that can be frustrating. So obviously Draymond Green has had some maybe back channel conversations with Durant and his people, and he's kind of getting that cold shoulder sense, and he's like, there's a chance Durant probably is going to take his ball and go somewhere else. And he has a right to, because of the fact that this is what the marketplace will dictate. When you can opt out, you have that right. Go ahead and do it. And it looks like Kevin Durant and the Warriors are struggling right now. So I wish the Pistons would go out and do it, and maybe because Kevin Durant has ties also to Jermaine Jackson, also to some ties here locally with, some family and some extended family.
Yeah, not enough. Keep trying, Doc.
Not enough?
Keep pulling for it and trying to make it happen.
Hope?
Yeah, your hopes vanish those hopes. Well, if you keep up hope, they're going to be vanished eventually.
Well, I'll say this.
So.
Ask Horatio Williams.
Yeah, that's my man. I like Horatio. Now, his pull, how huge would it be to bring Durant to Motown? Well, the Pistons would have become a better team. Would have to definitely become a better team for Durant to entertain Pistons offer. And they're not even going to, they're not even going to make him an offer, because they're not even in the playing field, of teams that have a chance at landing Durant. They're not even in the conversation of teams that have a chance at landing Durant if he opts out of his contract, which I expect to happen. But Horatio Williams, I love the guy. Good luck to him if he's going to try to convince him to join Detroit, because it ain't happening. It ain't happening, Horatio. It ain't happening. Doc either. So I hope you still sleep at night.
Ask Horatio Williams. Find out and see if we can make
Sure,
it happen.
I get it now. The Sherwin Williams commercial. Now you're using Horatio. Look at that. Try to be clever. You're always clever, man. A man of great ideas all the time here on the DSP Network, Doc.
Anything to help the Pistons. Great win versus Toronto. I like that.
Great win.
Yes, great win. We'll talk more maybe Pistons in future episodes. All right, one final topic. What you got, Vito?
College basketball, and it was a player being banned from campus after delivering, and this is in quotes from a site, I think foxsports.com. I got this from foxsports.com. And the title says, your college basketball player banned from campus after delivering atomic forearm shiver to opponent's face. And a D3 player from Fitchburg State. I know you love watching Fitchburg State basketball, Doc. You're always watching their games online. Anyways, player's name is Kawan Platt. And what happened is he decked Nichols Nate Tenaglia. And I think it's Nate Tenaglia. So he decked Tenaglia, and he got banned not only from the team, but from campus. He is gone from the school for decking this player with this forearm shiver. And it was dirty, one of the dirtiest plays you'll ever see if you watch the video, Doc. But was it worthy of the guy being banned from school? Being banned from Fitchburg State, the legendary Fitchburg State, for his actions on the floor?
It's a situation in which you look at it and you go, yes. You can't harm people playing a game. You have to have good sportsmanship. You can't be doing these kind of things, especially with violence these days, especially with concussions and how people are reacting to trauma to the head, blunt force trauma. You can't have this. And I know everybody back in the day loved the bad boys and the fisticuffs and things like that, but that's been regulated out of the game. You can't do that kind of stuff. You get technical, you get ejected, you're fined up the ass. So players like Draymond Green and those rough and tumble kind of players are going by the wayside. I absolutely agree with any punishment that's levied down. You got to be good. And did you see the video? Vicious elbow.
It was vicious.
Vicious
Ugly,
elbow.
dirty, one of the dirtiest plays, as I said already, that you'll see in all of college hoops, all of basketball.
Should he
There's
be
no room
allowed
in the
ever?
game for it.
A permanent suspension?
Well, that's the thing. He's done with the school. What do you think
Yeah.
about that, Doc? I'm trying to, gauge your reaction to that. What do you think? Was it worthy of the guy being banned from campus and the school completely?
Oh, wow. He's no longer back to be a student.
No longer able to attend class at the school. He's done with the school. See, I think that was harsh. I don't like the play. I would never do it. It's violent. There's no, rhyme or reason for it. But still, for the guy to be banned from campus like that, Doc, I think it's a little bit harsh. How about you?
Yeah, maybe some rehabilitation's needed, some situations in which these characters are young and impulsive in the heat of competition. Sometimes it makes it really tough to judge fully. I mean, look at the kid, 20 years old, who spit in the food of the pizza. He only got probation. Some people thought it was a major felony, something that would result in somebody going to jail. He only got 18 months probation. He's got to do some rehabilitation work, counseling, community service, that type. So in terms of punishment, I'm, obviously I lean a little bit toward rehabilitation, but something that violent, definitely not on the court. But I do think he has a right to continue his education as long as he would do some things like go to counseling regularly twice a week, community service, help out, learn, and maybe talk to kids about the importance of sportsmanship. You can rehabilitate somebody. But something like this, look, there's millions of schools he can go to. It's just maybe a situation in which, for the safety of the campus, maybe for retaliation, respect.
But do they really view him as a guy that would do
Might be a
something like
risk.
this off the court? Maybe he had a reputation,
Vito,
right?
in this
off the court,
society,
too.
we live in a litigious society, so we can't, if you have somebody do something violent once, keep him on, and then if he does something violent again, then you have a situation in which now you have a quote-unquote culture of violence in your institution. So remember, and this is what I tell young kids, back in the day, you and I could make a lot of mistakes. I mean, I did.
I did in college. I did away
Now,
from college, yeah.
Zero tolerance means that the culture is that if you make a mistake, the school or an institution has a right to just boot you out. One mistake and you're out. And that's why decision-making is super important. Go out and get great psychologists to work with if you have problems.
Do you
with
know one?
decision-making.
A great psychologist? I don't know one. I know I'm not in the same room as one right now.
Definitely. Give me a call. Get in touch with the DOC through the Detroit Podcast platform. And if you ever need any kind of mental assistance, guidance, or a great sports psychologist, find the DOC. I'll help you out.
But you know what? I really believe that you're right. I mean, rehabilitation is necessary for a guy like this and allow him to still attend classes. Now, we don't know his history. Maybe there was a background and a track record of him engaging in negative and maybe even violent activities off the floor. Maybe that's why he was dismissed from the school. And I guess we would need that kind of background info to really make a clear-cut decision on whether or not this kid deserves still being on campus, as a student at least, which I do without all of the necessary facts to really make that clear-cut judgment and call on this kid and whether or not he should have had a future at Fitchburg State.
great podcast recording, Vito. I hope you have a great weekend. Now, you came in a little bit under the weather. I'm proud of you for coming in and recording. I hope you and your family have a great Thanksgiving. We'll definitely record one more episode, but it will air after Thanksgiving. So I'm thankful that you're part of the network, that you bring in great sponsors, that the people that we've connected with through the work that you've done is just awesome. I mean, like I tell everybody, you are the rocket ship, you're the rocket fuel that sent us, pew, to heights that we never thought we would get to. So I'm always thankful. You know that. And, I just want to keep it going in 2019. You are verbally committed to the network. Sponsors keep coming.
Contractually obligated to, am I?
Yes.
Did I sign it? I'm trying to remember.
I have that proof.
Yeah.
You're
It's
contractually.
somewhere there.
You're
in the studio.
obligated that, we got a sponsor relationship that will carry us well into 2019. And so thanks again to Top Cat Sales, the legacy football organization. You can follow Vito Valenti at Vito Jerome. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Thank you so much for a great episode. I had fun. It was a really fun episode.
Maybe I should change my Twitter name to John's Rocket Man or Doc's Rocket Man. I'm your Rocket Man now.
That's
Look
right.
at that. Just found that out. And are you going to go out and party on Thursday,
No,
or on Wednesday Eve? Before Thanksgiving?
Mental vacation, baby. It's all good.
Mental vacation all week long for you, Doc. We'll talk again very soon here on Two Bad Hombres. Happy Thanksgiving to all. Adios.
You've just downloaded the latest episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.